It had been 2 weeks since Adaora's mother was buried. The days felt long and quiet. Adaora sat by the window every day holding a picture of her mother. She missed her so much and often whispered, "Mama, I hope you can see me. I miss you." Adaora was just 12 years old, and now she was all alone. Her father had passed away when she was a baby, so her mother had been her only family. Now she had no one. The neighbors were kind to her, but they couldn't keep her. Everyone said Adaora needed someone who could care for her. One sunny morning, Aunt Nkechi came to visit. Aunt Nkechi was her mother's younger sister. She lived in the big city, far away from the small village where Adaora had grown up. Aunt Nkechi hugged Adaora tightly and said, "Adaora, pack your things. You will come to the city with me. I will take care of you now." Adaora felt nervous. She had never been to the city before, but she also felt a little hopeful. Maybe this was a chance to start a new life. She packed her clothes, her school books, and her favorite picture of her mother. When the day came to leave, the neighbors gathered to say goodbye. They hugged Adaora and told her to be a good girl. As the bus drove away, Adaora looked out of the window and waved until she couldn't see the village anymore. The city was very different from the village. The roads were wide, and there were so many cars. Tall buildings stretched up to the sky, and people were everywhere, moving quickly. Adaora had never seen anything like it. When they reached Auntie Nkechi's house, Adaora met her uncle, Uncle Cheek. He was a tall man with a booming voice. "Welcome, Adaora," he said, smiling. His smile didn't make Adaora feel warm, though. It made her feel small. Auntie Nkechi showed Adaora her new room. It was small but neat, with a bed, a table, and a window that looked out at the busy street. "This is your new home," Auntie Nkechi said. Adaora nodded, unsure of what to say. That night, as Adaora lay on her bed, she thought about her mother. She felt sad and lonely, but she whispered to herself, "Mama, I will try to be strong. I will make you proud." Adjusting to a new life, Adaora's life in the city was very different from what she was used to. Auntie Nkechi woke up early every day to prepare food and get ready for work. She was kind to Adaora and told her what chores to do around the house. Adaora swept the floors, washed dishes, and helped with cooking. "I need you to work hard and behave well," Auntie Nkechi said one morning. "We all have to contribute in this house." Adaora nodded. She didn't mind helping. She wanted to show her aunt she was grateful. Uncle Chike, on the other hand, wasn't as kind. He often spoke in a loud voice that made Adaora feel nervous. He would complain about small things, like if the floor wasn't clean enough or if the food wasn't ready on time. Adaora tried her best to stay out of his way. One evening, Uncle Chike called Adaora into the living room. "Adaora," he said, "you're part of this family now. But remember, you must respect me. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Adaora replied quietly. Uncle Chike nodded, but didn't smile. Adaora didn't know what she had done wrong, but she apologized anyway. She spent most of her time trying to avoid him. At school, things were a little better. Adaora was shy at first, but she made a friend named Amaka. Amaka was friendly and loved to tell jokes. She made Adaora laugh, even on days when she felt sad. "You're so quiet," Amaka said one day during lunch. "But I like you. You're nice." "Thank you," Adaora said, smiling for the first time in days. Even though she enjoyed school, Adaora always felt a knot in her stomach when it was time to go home. She tried to be brave, but Uncle Chike's loud voice and cold looks scared her. She didn't know how to tell Auntie Nkechi about it. What if she didn't believe her? Every night, Adaora prayed before bed. "Mama, please help me be strong. I don't know what to do." The first signs of trouble. One evening, Auntie Nkechi had to go out to the market. "I won't be long," she said. "Be good, Adaora." After Auntie Nkechi left, Uncle Chike called Adaora into his room. "Adaora, come here," he said in a soft voice. His voice sounded calm, but it made Adaora feel uneasy. Adaora slowly walked into the room. Uncle Chike told her to sit down. He began asking her questions, strange questions that made her uncomfortable. "Don't tell anyone about this," he said before letting her leave. Adaora felt confused and scared. She didn't understand why Uncle Chike acted that way. She wanted to tell someone, but who could she talk to? What if Aunt Nkechi didn't believe her? What if they sent her away? That night, Adaora cried silently in her bed. She clutched her mother's picture and whispered, "Mama, please help me. I'm so scared." The fear deepens. Adaora tried her best to avoid Uncle Chike after that night. She stayed in her room whenever Auntie Nkechi was away, and when Uncle Chike called her, she would pretend she didn't hear him. But no matter how hard she tried, Uncle Chike always found a way to corner her. One afternoon, Auntie Nkechi went to visit a friend. Before leaving, she said, "Adaora, I'll be back soon. Please sweep the house and wash the dishes." As soon as she left, Uncle Chike appeared. "Adaora," he said in a low voice. "Come here." Adaora froze. Her hands shook as she put down the broom. "Yes, Uncle?" she said quietly. "Come closer," he said, sitting on the sofa. Adaora obeyed, her heart pounding. He began asking her questions again, questions that made her uncomfortable. Adaora wanted to run, but she didn't know where to go. When he was done talking, he said, "Remember, this is our little secret. Don't tell anyone." Adaora nodded, tears in her eyes. She felt trapped. If she told someone, they might not believe her. What if Auntie Nkechi became angry and sent her away? Adaora had nowhere else to go. That night, Adaora cried into her pillow. She wished her mother was still alive. She wished she could talk to someone, but fear kept her silent. At school the next day, Amaka noticed that Adaora looked sad. "Adaora, are you okay?" she asked. Adaora wanted to tell Amaka the truth, but she shook her head and said, "I'm fine." Amaka didn't believe her. "If something is wrong, you can tell me," she said. Adaora felt a tiny spark of hope, but her fear was stronger. "I'm okay, really," she insisted. For weeks, Adaora carried the heavy secret alone. She avoided Uncle Chike as much as possible, but the fear never left her. Every night she prayed for help, hoping someone would notice her pain. One morning at school, Adaora's teacher, Mrs. Grace, noticed that Adaora wasn't herself. She had dark circles under her eyes and didn't smile much anymore. During lunch, Mrs. Grace called Adaora aside. "Adaora, is everything all right at home?" she asked gently. Adaora hesitated. Her hands trembled as she looked at the floor. "Yes, Ma," she whispered. Mrs. Grace didn't believe her. "Adaora, I'm here to help you," she said. "You can tell me anything. I promise to keep you safe." Adaora's eyes filled with tears, but she still didn't speak. The bell rang, and she quickly ran back to class. That evening, Adaora wrote in her notebook. It was the only place where she felt safe to share her feelings. She wrote about her fear, her sadness, and how much she missed her mother. The next day, Mrs. Grace tried again. "Adaora, I'm here for you," she said. "If you need help, you can come to me anytime." Adaora felt a tiny bit of courage grow in her heart. She didn't know if she could trust Mrs. Grace, but she decided to wait for the right moment. One evening, while Auntie Nkechi was out, Uncle Chike called Adaora into the living room again. This time, his behavior was worse than ever. Adaora felt terrified. She ran to her room, locked the door, and cried. She knew she couldn't keep silent anymore. The next day at school, Adaora asked to speak to Mrs. Grace in private. With tears streaming down her face, she told her everything. She told Mrs. Grace about Uncle Chike's behavior and how scared she felt. Mrs. Grace listened carefully and hugged Adaora. "You are so brave, Adaora," she said. "I promise to help you." Mrs. Grace spoke to the school counselor, and they called the right people to help Adaora. Soon, Auntie Nkechi was told what had been happening. She was shocked and furious when she found out about Uncle Cheek. "You will never go near Adaora." "Again!" she shouted at him. She sent Uncle Cheek away and apologized to Adaora for not noticing earlier. Adaora was taken to a safe place where she could heal and feel loved. She started talking to a counselor who helped her feel stronger and more confident. Over time, Adaora learned that speaking up was the right thing to do. She realized that there are people who care and want to help, even when things seem scary. Now, Adaora looks at the sky and whispers to her mother, "Mama, I am strong now."